Hello everyone, and welcome to Abstract Sketchbooking number 3 with Joy. That's me, I'm Joy, and we're going to do a couple of different things today in this video. I had planned on adding to the works that I had done in the previous video in number 2. So if you watched number 2, you saw me working on this, and I had been intending initially to add some collaged papers to this. However, I think I'm really happy with the way it looks right now, just with all these beautiful marks. There's a lot of really delicate little marks that happened, and I'm really quite happy with that. So I think I'm going to put this aside for now, and this might be the final finished form, but I'll put it aside and look back at it in a month from now and make a decision then. And maybe it will change then, and maybe it won't. We shall see. So I'm putting this aside for the moment. And I wanted to just do another small collaged element in this smaller sketchbook. Like most artists, I have tons and tons of sketchbooks. They don't always get filled. Some of them are halfway filled. Some of them I never start in because they're so beautiful, and I keep thinking, oh, I have to do something really special with that because it's such a beautiful sketchbook. And you know what? It's time to just start using the sketchbooks. It's time to just start filling them up. So I had done this one page. This is the one and only page that has been done in this particular sketchbook. So I thought, you know what, let's maybe dedicate this because this is really beautiful paper. Let's dedicate this to doing some abstract work for a while. We'll see if I can sustain that for all of these. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but let's at least do a few and we'll see how that goes. I'll still do abstract work in my other sketchbook as well, but I thought, let's play. And if you are an artist like me with all these different sketchbooks lying around, you do tend to bounce back and forth between several of them at one time. And that's actually really great if you're working abstractly. Because if you're, for example, just laying down some gesso, or you're just laying down basic color on some pages, you can do that in 3 or 4 or 5 different sketchbooks, set those aside, wait for them to dry, and then you can work on, one at a time, and you can kind of go back and forth between the 4 or 5 different pictures, different sketchbooks, all at the same time. Working simultaneously is a great idea when you're working abstractly, because it's good to set something aside before it's complete and go and do something else. And then when you go back to it, you're coming with fresh eyes, you're coming with a bit of detachment, so it's easier at that point then to look at whatever it is you've been working on and see things a little more objectively, maybe turn something upside down or sideways and look at it from a completely new perspective. And a lot of times that really does help in the process of moving from a stage where maybe you were stuck and didn't know what to do next into a more finished piece. So anyway, we're just going to do a little bit here on this page, and I thought we'd do more with paper collage. So I've got some really great papers here, and I'm just going to randomly tear some shapes and play around with an arrangement. You can create your own papers for collaging, or you can find a lot of papers pre-made. either on Amazon or on different art websites. It's completely up to you. You can do kind of a mixture or combination of some pre-bought and some that you're making yourself, which is what I do. And you can also use stencils directly on whatever it is you're working on. That's a great little additional technique that I think maybe we will do today along with this paper. And sometimes, you know, you're not real clear on where you're going, which is completely fine. As I said before, I do tend to work very intuitively. So, you know, I don't make a lot of decisions ahead of time. So I might pull out some papers and start with one or two and then just kind of see where it goes from there, you know. It might end up going in a completely different direction than I initially thought that it was going to go. You know, that's perfectly normal. And so, if you remember from my other videos, we put the gel medium on both the bottom and the top to help it adhere really well to the page, to help it kind of melt down into that background, whatever your background is. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this if I lift this up a little bit higher, closer to the camera. So right up here at the top of this paper, and plus you can see on my paintbrush how my paintbrush has turned a little more pinkish, that the gel medium actually lifted up some of that color and moved it out into the white background area. All perfectly wonderful. Having any kind of little things like that might be a surprise actually adds character to your work. So just go with the flow, just go with whatever happens. Don't be upset by something like that if it happens. It just adds characteristics, it adds interest to your piece, you know. So yeah, just go with it. I also really wanted to use this tissue paper that I've created lots of different you know, colors with the jelly gouache that I showed you in my first video. And I'm really liking this purple one that has some metallic silver painted on top of it and a light lavender metallic over here. So I want to see what happens with this. And working in the other sketchbook, we had a really fantastic experience with the tissue paper kind of melting so much into the brown craft paper that it essentially disappeared, and it really only looked like it was paint that was on the surface, not actually paper. And I thought that was really cool, and I want to see if that happens now in the same way with this, which is a different kind of a brown paper. It's still that type of a shade, although this is more yellowy than what I had been working on the other day, and it's a lot rougher because this is a handmade paper. So there's a lot more texture to the paper itself, which still shows through, even though I painted that white rectangle to start working on. That texture from the paper still actually shows up quite a lot. I'm just going to do something a little bit different here now with this. I'm just playing with arrangements, placements, size and shape. We're going to make this into 2 pieces. I have one coming down from the top. And then let's see, what does this little guy want to do? I think he might want to go on a diagonal. I think perhaps like there. So let's go with that. And let's pop some of our gel medium onto the back. And my cat is wandering around, and she might be in the picture. I don't know. Sometimes she likes to be right up here with her nose and whatever it is that I'm doing. So she's right close by. So I'm anticipating she might be stepping within view of the camera any second now. So just be aware. I do work on the floor. I'm a little bit quirky and that I really love sitting on the floor. You know, everybody has their thing, their favorite way of working, or their favorite location in their house of working. For me, it's just sitting on the floor and having all my art supplies around me. So I'm just putting a little gel medium on the top. And yeah, some of the purple is bleeding out into the white area, which again is, I think, a really interesting effect to have happen. So we're just gonna go with that. Maybe even intentionally try to get some of that going out there into the white, getting some of that lavender moving and spreading there. Yeah, and so it really is basically the same with this paper now, where we have that tissue paper kind of melting into the background so that it really looks just like a pure paint application and not even a paper. If it wasn't for the fact that you can see some of the wrinkling of the tissue paper, you might not even realize that that was actually paper. So interesting, very nice. I am very happy with that. And so I'm also going to look at some stencils, as I had mentioned. So let's, just moving some things around so I can grab one of my stencil boxes. I have lots of stencils all over the place. I think we're going to work with the negative shapes from some of the lettering stencils. There's so many interesting shapes that come from that. You know, sometimes you do get a letter or a number, or sometimes you just get, you know, a shape like that's almost a rectangle, but I want something more interesting. So maybe like this. Yeah, that's a really interesting shape. And I'm just going to trace that. I'm just going to use a pen and just trace this shape. And then we'll decide, once the shape is there, do we want to paint it? What kind of paint do we want to use? Or are we going to add more paper inside? Or are we going to even continue with a black pen and draw patterns inside? There's all kinds of things that we could potentially do. There we are. You could even go in with pencil. Okay. And I like that the shape has some of the paper from two different areas that are now inside that shape. Again, that's going to add more interest to what's happening there. And it is a nice thing, excuse me, it is a nice thing to have contrast within your work. So from color to black and white or pattern to no pattern, it can be very interesting and just being very playful. I think I'm going to go with that idea of black pen design. And so I'm just going to start filling in the white areas with some design and pattern here. I'm just doing X's. Letters and numbers, even for designs, is a great thing when you may not know exactly what else to do, or for me, it's fast and easy. So you can fill in pretty quickly. And then, I have to decide, do I want to continue with the X's throughout the rest of the white areas of that shape, or do I want to change that up and do something different? And I'm feeling like I'm just going to continue with the X's for this particular one. And I'll try to do this quickly. And that's good. I'm going to stop there. Nope. I think I'm going to fill in just a little bit more there into that lavender space. Yeah, there. Okay. That's good. And I might do another one then up in here so that there's a balance from one area to another where there's some repetition in either color or pattern. So up here on the top, let's do something else, another type of shape that we can fill in with some more X's. And I'm just going to look at some shapes here and decide how this is going to go. Again, it's play, so don't think that, oh, I have to be so precious with this, and if it doesn't come out right, I'm going to be upset, and don't worry about it, really. I kind of like that this shape has that pointed indentation that kind of fits in with the point of the purple shape there. So I'm going to go with that. And again, our shape is going across two different types of papers, and it's on a diagonal, which will also add a little interest there. Diagonals are very dynamic, so having diagonals in your picture helps with movement, helps with interest. Okay, very nice. Do I want to continue with the X's? That is the question of the moment. Or should we do a different shape? For example, little circles or O's, if you want to call it X's and O's. And the thing that's really cool about working small like this with abstract and working in your sketchbook is that you may find really interesting things that you absolutely love and decide that would make a great painting, and then you end up doing, you know, a much larger version. It might not be the same, but you'll take things that you really, really love that happen in your sketchbook and have that inform a much larger piece that you're going to do, a painting of some sort. And this is the place to just like play and experiment in your sketchbook and have those types of resources, because that's what your sketchbook is. It's a resource that can inform other works that you're doing. And then, you know, you can go back and rework things. You can put things away for a month or 2 months, however long, go back and look at them, and get excited all over again about things that are happening, or come up with new ideas of how to rework something. Okay, so I want to show you guys, and some of you may already know about the Posca paint pens. I really love these. So Posca is the brand name, and it's acrylic ink, and you can basically draw or paint with it. It's acrylic, and so I'm just going to add a little bit with this. If you really want to get, you know, lines, these are great to work with, but you could also just scribble with them. You know, you don't have to do just drawing of a line. You could actually do just coloring in, scribbling, dots, whatever. So repetition is an excellent thing to do in abstract pieces where you're repeating lines, you're repeating shapes, you're repeating colors. Okay, I think we're going to stop with the pink, and let's think about what else do we want to do with this. So maybe we'll take some of that blue, some of that nice turquoise, and just pop that in there. And I'm feeling like that whole entire middle space, which is somewhat of a diamond space, I think this whole thing needs to get filled in. So, like I said in my first video, I do work very intuitively. So it's how I'm feeling in the moment, how I'm responding to the shapes and the lines. As I put down each thing, it makes me think of something else, or it evokes some type of a feeling. And so, you know, that's kind of how abstract work goes, one step at a time. You're just working intuitively, you're just responding to each little thing that happens on the page as you're working. And you're not overthinking, you're not so much engaging your brain. You're just really being in the moment with what's happening on the page. And yeah, that turquoise is amazing right there. Yeah, we definitely need some more turquoise someplace else in the picture to kind of balance that out. I don't want that to be the only turquoise area. So I'm actually going to go all the way to the edge. There, very nice. Okay, where else? Perhaps we'll go corner to corner, having a little balance with that. Okay. All right, and maybe adding to the outlined area around the pink around this shape. All right. And so let's do that same right there. And so I'm just going to stop. You know, sometimes you can overwork something. That's easy to do. You know, especially when you're working small. You can get excited and you can overwork things, you know, end up doing too much. But that, you know, it's all good, really. If that happens, I wouldn't even worry about it. It's all good. I do want to fill in this middle space right here. I think that needs to be solid black. And so black is a very strong color. So anytime you add something black, the eye's immediately going to be drawn to that, and it's going to have a pretty powerful impact. So don't overuse that. I do think we need more black someplace else in some other fashion, but I'm thinking rather than a pen, I'm going to add the Stabilo Woody. So I showed you this in my first video, these chubby little Stabilo Woody pencils. They're very rich and creamy, very much like an oil pastel, but they're also water soluble, which is great. So once you put down some color, you can go in on top with a wet brush and move the color around, or you can leave it as a line. So it's a really great tool to have on hand, especially working abstractly. And so I'm just going to draw a little bit with this. I like loops and spirals and, you know, snake-like squiggles, things like this. So, and you know what? We do need another strong black. So I'm actually going to fill in, going right on top of that collage paper with this Stabilo Woody. And it's just a really creamy, smooth texture, so it lays down right on top of your collage papers, or if there was paint there. This is just going to go right over the top of it without any trouble whatsoever. Just covering that up a bit. Do some black right up in here. And the other nice thing, and you'll hear a lot of artists say this, is when you have a lot of curves and rounded shapes, or shapes that really don't conform to any type of a geometric shape, it's nice to then throw in stripes or dots, or circles, something geometric, as a nice contrast to those weird random organic shapes or to all these curves, so you have that contrast that happens again. So, and we even have the negative white space going down the side here that ends up looking like a stripe as well. So you've got the stripe there, you've got the stripes with the purple and the black and the turquoise, you've got the stripes with the pink Posca paint pen going down the side. So having that repetition of that element contrasted with the organic shapes or the curves, always a good idea to do that. It will add to your balance. We need just a little bit more of a strong black right here. So I do think a little bit about design and balance as I'm working. So I'm thinking about contrast, I'm thinking about shape and line, and I'm thinking about balance and harmony. And I want to have really strong areas of color. I want to make sure that if you're looking, you have lots of things to look at. That's one of the great things about abstract art, is having really interesting things happening in the piece so that your eye is always kind of wandering around the page and finding new places to stop and look at and new things to discover. I'm just going to thicken up this part, this edge of that shape, just making that black line a little bit thicker and heavier. So it's nice to have a contrast from thin lines to thick lines. So I always have all around me all different kinds of pens and markers and things. This is a Touch. It's an Asian company. I'm not actually even sure what that company was, but you can see that it does say Touch, and then there's some writing in another language there. I just buy pens all the time from everywhere, from art stores, even from Amazon. You can find a lot of pens. I read other artists' blogs, and if I'm interested in something that other artists are using, I'll jot down notes of their tools and materials, and when I get a chance, I will purchase if I'm able to. So I think we need to leave this alone for the moment. It's not finished, but at the moment I feel like I need to just step away from this. So we're going to close that for now, for today, and put that aside. And I'm going to say thank you, folks, for joining me for another session, and I will see you very soon. And I will try and do a lot more of these videos as often as I can, and we'll just have fun playing together, being abstract. So thank you so much, folks. Take it easy.